The Valley of the Bells. His head throbs and his eyeballs feel like they're swelling out of their sockets. Oft experienced symptoms. But last night, what had he been drinking to give him such a bag of nails hangover? A mix of the nauseously familiar and he doesn't know quite what. Something else. There is an unyielding solidity beneath him. Has he not made it to his bed? He isn't ready to find out yet. The background pulse of pain, giddiness and lightheadedness are a disturbing mix. He is resigned right now to his catatonic no-man's land, a static state of pain and uneasiness, putting off as long as possible the inevitable need to move and awaken his body into articulations which are most likely to ratchet up his suffering. Gradually, incrementally, his senses begin to awaken. Is the distant hum coming from within him? The pain surely is, and the taste, like rotten Parmesan cheese, or vomit. Has he puked? With the desire to air his fetidly stagnant mouth, he tries to part his lips, but quickly gives in. Other attempted movements of his limbs are equally hopeless. For a moment he dreads some sort of paralysis, but seems to be getting the signals through. He retches and, throwing up, shocks his system out of its alcoholic torpor as his face slides in his vomit. Twisting to turn his face from it, he is quickly aware of limited movement, and one by one he realizes that his ankles, knees, and wrists are constricted. He can twist his body through a few degrees sideways, but his feet feel like they are locked to something and can hardly move at all. As he crooks his head, he can feel something hard is covering his ears, and he feels it scraping and echoing on the hard floor. He tentatively draws back his swollen eyelids and is lost in an all-enveloping blackness. At the same time, he is aware of something being pulled over his eyes, and almost immediately a hint of light through his eye covering. There is no sound, at least not from outside him, but his gurgling and snorting vomit out of his nose canal seem alarmingly loud. He stills his inner movements, and then it starts. First a distant echoing vibration from within his hard ear covering. Headphones. Getting closer and louder, developing into a rasping, screeching, metallic shriek as he howls, grinds his teeth, and contracts every sinew in his body. After a 30-second eternity of auditory hell, as it stops abruptly, he whines and is reduced to a whimper. But as his whimper fades, the rasping starts again, building up, squealing and wailing like a high-speed pulsing drill, increasing in frequency to become a continuous high-pitched shiver, held at an unbearable intensity for an eternity of seconds before slowing, becoming deeper, much slower, much deeper, settling on a frequency and pitch, a low-pitched, gurgling chug, somehow discernible, almost recognizable, repeating in engine idle motion. Familiar. His Hummer vehicle engine. He half remembers tumbling towards it from the 6 bells for the short drive back to the manor. His manor. And then, now, what is happening? Where is he? Disoriented and queasy with bewilderment and rising pain, he hangs to his here and now state. He is subliminally aware of a vague competing of aches, throbbings and soreness, passively accepting the present status quo, unconsciously subduing thoughts of what might come if he allows his nervous system to open up. Inexorably, desperate pains and desires rise above others, and, unable to stifle and withhold, his body relieves the aches as it releases its alcohol-poisoned contents in sticky, rank, reeking flows. Helpless, hopeless, he lies, half-conscious, a self-made man, in his self-serving world, in his self-made excretia. Look, maybe we ought to stop. Maybe we're going too far. Stop now? This is the real start of what we want to test. But I didn't think it would be so extreme. God, his face and the screams. The man's a scumbag. He needs a bit of pain to prepare him. Just keep the camera on him. All our observations now are crucial. We need to see what changes there are. But if he's a scumbag, it might not work. Maybe he hasn't got it. Of course he's got it. Everyone has. It's just deep down. We need to unlock it, free it. What I'm going to give him now? Give him? I'm giving him Ravel. La Vallee Des Cloches. Valley of the Bells. The orchestral version. Emotion. E-motion. X-motion. It means to move out, trigger something. Something that will release a deeper emotion and feeling of empathy. But the ethics of... Ethics? That's why we're doing this. The man has no ethics. He's morally and socially sick. We're trying to cure him. Sometimes you have to take things into your own hands. You don't think the community would allow us to do this officially. They're too hung up on misplaced ethics. They've tried their rehabilitation programs, restorative justice with victims, but no effect. This man is unable to empathise. It's an illness, and after they've tried all their methods and recidivism rears its ugly head. He labels himself, and then he becomes incurable to them and to himself. He has no way of redemption from within. His life becomes a developing cycle of self-perpetuating egotism and self-absorption, but really damage to himself and to the people he leaves in his wake. We don't understand how almost impossible it is for some people to develop a conscience and feeling for others. You don't just pick it up naturally. It depends on your early life environment. So why the music? I don't get it. No, of course you don't get it. It's classical music. Most people don't get classical music. It has different layers. You don't get down to the deeper layers in one listen. It takes time and repetition before it surrenders its real inner emotion. soaks its way into your psyche, into your soul. Words and talk can only take us so far emotionally. Music articulates deeper emotions. And why Ravel? Because he was supposedly repressed and private and unemotional. But if you listen closely and repeatedly, give it a chance, his deep love of humanity soaks into your being. We need to prove to them that it can work. That's why the camera and the sound observations are so important. We can correlate his reactions with what he's hearing inside the headphones. Correlate it with each listening. It takes time to seep in, to resonate, to redeem. This is a first step in a possible cure. Think of the implications for humanity. If we get positive indications here, think of the implications for prisons, for society, for despots, big business. Warm, flowing from outside his body, odourless and apprehensively painless, he is aware of spattering pinpricks swirling up and down his body. A sudden rip down the leg area of his trousers, and then his other trouser leg. A grabbing of his belt, his groin area. He senses the shredding of his trousers, and he dare not register or enjoy it. The warm sensation of flowing water over his waist area. Is he imagining it? A comforting sensation as he feels his lower body wrapped in some sort of fabric. And then there is stillness, which allows his racked body and perturbed mind to slacken, deflate, as exhaustion leads him into a shallow doze. It is short-lived as the plangent arrival of clanging bells envelops him and quickens into an edgy pulse which resonates somewhere in his horror film memory store. Every sound and phrase is loaded with foreboding, as unsettling minor chords foreshadow likely development into a scratching and screeching torturous cacophony. But the pulse slows, pauses and transforms to a calm, yet slowly tolling death knell, as individual notes clang up and down the decibel scale, unsettling and confusing his mind. In his heightened state of fear he awaits his fate, as a last bell sounds, and its sustained echo forewarns a transition into he dreads. In anticipation of the inevitable, he tenses his jaw up to his ears and cheekbones in a fraught attempt to close out the next sound, a sound that enters with a rising soar of strings and a disorienting, but not yet threatening feel. He suspects a slow, taunting development, but the music loops back into the bells and edgy pulse, onto the strings once more, and again it loops round and round and round and round. With every repetition he takes in more and more of the overall structure and external manifestations of what he is hearing. The sound frame sequence is progressively carved into his mind, with the bells and edgy pulse bookending either side of the unexpectedly tender central heart. The central heart, font of the real inner emotion, where the sudden generously singing development into the string section gradually penetrates through his hard emotional shield. Deeper and deeper, its warmth, compassion, and humanity insinuates itself through tight fissures, and loop after loop, it seeps into the unexplored glacial caverns of his soul, where it resonates. For the first time in his life, something resonates here and unlocks. He is bewildered by the rising invasion of an emotion not part of him. What's happening to me? Feeling of losing control, as he is overcome by a rushing flood from his solar plexus up through his throat and overflowing into existence as he spirals upwards into emotional helplessness and surrenders. Surrenders and cries and cries and cries. Cries so much that he hurts. Hurts in a way that he has never hurt before. A cathartic hurt. He cries so much at each loop and continues loop after loop after loop, now yearning for the music's central heart, until exhausted and drained of tears as the music fades. He hums and whimpers and sings, a wordless purging singing from somewhere deep inside him, a hymn to his spiritual release, to his liberation, to his deliverance, to his redemption, a hymn from the soul, a hymn from the Valley of the Bells.